What do you want? You want the moon?
I think I finally know what I want to do with my life. I'm going to join the entertainment industry.
Abby, everybody knows you can't make any money with an arts degree.
But won't it make me happy?
Money can make you happy.
That's right, boys and girls. At Skitbags Radio, money can buy you happiness that creativity can. We always talk to the best in Hollywood and entertainment who are going to show you how to buy the happiness you deserve. Always on Dash Talk X. And you better buckle up, saddle in, take your phone off the hook because we got a brand new ball game. Let's go.
All aboard!
Yo, fam. Yo, oh shit, dog. I done fucked up. I done killed like 3 motherfuckers, raped 3 girls, and my girlfriend just found out I got a side bitch.
Yo, dog, you mean you know who you need to find? You need this guy. He hangs with this crew. I think they're called. Man, tell me who it is. I need you to help me. You need Cale Thomas. That guy can turn a pig into a princess with 2 hot dogs and a shit stain. Let's get it on this Skitbags Radio. We got Cale Thomas in the house. We partying down. We gonna talk about all the things from special effects to non-effects to your mama coming inside and outside the house when she don't talk rowdy with her mouth. Break it down and hold it out. Skitbags Radio.
All right.
Wow.
That was impressive.
Thank you, sir.
Cale Thomas, the master of disguises.
That's right.
Cale, welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah.
What's up, fella?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm grateful to be here. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Yeah.
We're totally stoked.
Great to have you.
Yeah, we're excited to get to know the side of your expertise and your longevity of career. What would you describe yourself as? What is like your official title or titles?
Well, I'm a trainee on the roster of Local 706, so I'm a makeup artist.
Oh.
Yeah,
Alright.
so I do everything as far as characters and first team as far as their looks are concerned with just the overall fuck.
Yeah, that's right. The overall fuck. That's what
Here we go. Yeah, I'm just a worker in the makeup department. So my responsibilities primarily are for taking care of first team, doubles, stunts, splinter unit, second unit. I mean, whatever you need, pretty much.
And that goes from, regular makeup to special effects makeup to...
You're right. I'm kind of an outlier in that sense, and we can get a little more into that. And I know that the show is kind of geared towards people that are interested in kind of getting into the film industry.
Right.
And I can talk about some of my experiences and how they've helped me stay employed as a
Very
makeup
important.
artist
Yeah.
in the film industry.
Because you're in the union, right?
Yeah, I joined it was August 11th,
Yeah.
2017.
I
is when
remember
got
when
on the
you did
roster.
that because I filled out some paperwork or something.
Yeah, you had to do employment verification.
So once you got unionized, do you think that helped you find more work at all?
Well,
or-
it definitely helped my bank account, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it's funny because I talk to a lot of people in the industry that have been, I got exposed to people that have had 30 years in the film industry in Los Angeles here, and hearing their experiences back in the day in the 80s, and it didn't really diverge much from my experiences in 2013 to 2016 when I came back in 2010.
Also, it's consistent. It's like football is football.
Well,
It's just the same old stuff, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they were just like, well, I was like, what were you making on your last indie movie before you got into the union? And they were like, well, I was making $250 a day. And I'm like, what year was that? And they were like, 1992.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what were you paying for rent? And they were like, well, I was paying $450 for my 2-bedroom in Hollywood. And I'm like, okay,
Wow.
cut to 2013. I was making $200 a day. Right. And I was paying $1,200 for my back house in Glendale.
Wow.
And
But that's before the union.
right before the union.
And that guy was probably in the union back then.
Exactly. And I'm like, listen, we're good. We're good. None of us are going to be homeless.
Yeah.
We're going to be all right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of inspired you to get into the special effects thing? Because I remember you always know about it from watching movies, watching horror movies and all that stuff back in the day. But like for me, when a movie like FX came out back in the day,
Yep.
and some of those kind of movies like Dark Man and stuff, it was like
Yep.
it was based on like covering changing your face, and it became like actually part of the movie. Was those kind of things kind of inspiring to you to kind of get into this, or did you kind of just fall into it?
Oh, no, 100%. Well, it's kind of funny. I grew up in Los Angeles. I'm a Valley boy. I'm from North Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
I went to Toluca Lake Elementary School. I went to an NH. And through that, I ended up meeting a guy that I went to junior high school named Chris Ray. And his father was Fred Olin Ray, who was one of Roger Corman's directors. And if you guys were familiar with Roger Corman, he was a producer back in the 80s. And he was the guy that would give a lot of people jobs that Hollywood wouldn't touch. James Cameron was one of them. Joe Dante was one of them. Ron Howard was one of them. Wow. So he was coming from that lineage of just the very menial, like indie market in Los Angeles. And he had a stage out in Venice that he produced a lot of movies through. But Fred, his son, we used to play D&D together, right, on the weekends.
Yeah,
right? We're talking about
That's Evan stuff right there.
like a junior in 7th grade, Cale, and we would go over there and we would hang out. And his dad was producing a movie at the time called Dark Universe. And he asked me to come in the back, and they were doing pickups in the backyard. And John Beekler has done a lot of effects for him. And I met John at his party, and he goes, I just need an insert of this monster hand. And he had a glove that John had produced for him, and I wore the glove, and they did a quick insert, and that was it, right? That was it. And I was just kind of just thrilled to be a part of that. And what ended up happening is, as I was leaving, he smoked cigars, right? So he comes out and he goes, "Hey kid," and he gave me $10. And I was like, that's my first paid gig into the film industry. But before that, my father, and I told this story last night, it's interesting. My father was an actor when we were born in Atlanta, but we moved here in '82. And my father was an actor, and he was day playing on a TV show called Alienation, right? And there was a movie with James Caan, but they ended up doing an adaptation of it for TV. And he was a day checker on it, and he came home. He used to take me to set all the time, and I would like pull slate for camera. I would just kind of just be there as like the son of the actor, and I knew.
And they would just insert you into situations.
Yeah, just different departments or whatever. And I knew that I wanted to work on a film set. I just didn't know what capacity or department that would be until the night he came home. Now, my mom and him broke up a year after I was born, and we drove out here, and like I said, he was day checking. So my mom was like, "You need to stay up." And I was just like, "Why?" And she goes, "Your dad's coming," right? So he pulled a 12-hour whatever, and it was raining, and he came with a trench coat, and he had a plastic bag over his head, and he came into the house, and he pulled the bag off his head. And I don't know if you're familiar with the design of that makeup, but it's essentially like this elongated kind of head with this kind of giraffe-esque pattern over the top of it. And that was the makeup. And it cut to 2018. I'm on set, and I'm with one of the guys that worked on the TV show.
Crazy.
And I'm telling him the story, and he was just like, "I wonder if I did that makeup."
Right?
Yeah, so it's kind of full circle. But back to when I was working, that first job that I did for Fred, he had a party, and I was one of the kind of bartenders with his son. And his son is actually an AD now and a director and a part of the community here in Los Angeles. But he was just, we were hanging out, and a buddy of his girlfriend was Nikki Fritz, who's this kind of just really just beautiful bombshell scream queen kind of girl. And she showed up to this party, and they presented him with this giant hairless rat head. Because Fred had a lot of taxidermy around the house, just kind of oddities, right? And he had stuff that was, he was really good friends with Ed Wood, so he had a lot of Ed's personal stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he told a lot of really cool stories about Ed. And he had this head. I'm like, "Oh, that's fucking cool." And he was just like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Did you make this?" And I'm talking about Mark, and he was like, "No, my buddy Tim made this." And I said, "That's what I want to do." And he goes, "Well, let me give you his number," right? And I called the number, and this is in like 93 when this happened. And I called my buddy Tim, who I'm still lifelong friends with. And if you're not familiar with the work of Tim Gore, it is prolific. And he's one of the marquee paint designers in the shop industry here in Los Angeles. I mean, he's worked for everybody from Rick Baker, Stan Winston, you name it. He was one of the top guys and still remains. He's worked at K&B. I mean, he's worked for everybody. And he called me, And he was just like, what time do you get out of school? And I'm like, I get out of school at 3:30. And he goes, all right, I'm going to pick you up. Because he was working on Island of Dr. Moreau at the time.
Oh, my God.
That's
that was crazy flick. Yeah, that was
If you have an opportunity.
The second remake?
Yeah, the Brando one. If you have an opportunity to watch the Stanley, he does a documentary. I think it's called.
It's Island of Darkness?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
Island,
it?
yeah. And that is. Wow.
That's like the behind the scenes of the movie.
Oh, yeah. And
That's right.
Just the fucking insanity of that movie.
Where
was just
everything went wrong, didn't it?
everything.
Yeah.
Like the director was fired.
Like people were dying almost.
Well, the director was fired and he came back as a background monster and he's on the set after he had been released.
Hilarious.
And they were afraid he was going to like sabotage their production and like burn the set to the ground. It is a very amazing documentary.
He'd like throw in, like, he'd like pull his pants down in the far background of a scene just to see if he could make it.
Nothing like that.
Like the kid in Teen Wolf.
That'd be hilarious.
But anyways, I digress. He was working on Dr. Moreau at the time, and I think he was working on a movie called Relic as well. And what ended up happening is he goes, what time do you get out of school? And I said, I get out of school at 3:30. And he goes, I'll be at your house at 4 o'clock, and pick me up. And he took me back to he had a garage in Glendale, and he handed me a broom, and he said, go sweep the back of the shop. And I swept the back of the shop. And I did that, and he was working on at the time he was working on a Universal Studios Florida installation for their Halloween exhibit. And he was just making general props and stuff, skulls, skeletons, bodies. But at the time, he was working with a band called Skinny Puppy, and he was developing all of their stage act for Ogre, their lead singer, and he had done a bunch of
Ogre?
suits. Yeah, that's the lead singer's name. He was in another band called Pigface too. So, yeah, that was at that time of like Nine Inch Nails. Like this is before pre-Manson. This is like just that whole scene of
Before Guar.
Yeah, before
Grunge rock.
Guar was around, but it was definitely like Ministry.
Yeah.
You know, Al Jorgensen, all those guys were really big horror fans, and he kind of got in and kind of made his name as like this guy. And that's how he got the name Gore, because he's the gore guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I started painting with him, and then, you know, through the 90s, I painted with him, and he got me my first job at Greg Canham's shop at the time on a Kevin Sorbo movie with Tina Carrera. And he went to go do Godzilla, which is the Broderick Godzilla. And he went to go paint over at this artist named Patrick Totopoulos, who was the designer for the show. And he left me, and I ended up painting these creatures, and we ended up working on a Rolling Stones video. We did a bunch of stuff until kind of the industry started to kind of wane out in the late 90s here in Los Angeles, and a lot of productions started going to Canada. And a lot of things started going to New Zealand. A lot of stuff started going to Australia, like the Matrix movies, right? The Lord of the Rings movies. You know, all this stuff, they started getting tax breaks in other countries. And so a lot of the industry, especially the television and film industry here in Los Angeles, kind of just evaporated. And what ended up happening is the resurgence of non-scripted television. Right.
Yeah.
So that's when like Road Rules and like all of those kind of things started kind of coming in, and there was a big writer strike. And so what ended up happening was I was working at a toy company called 21st Century Toys, doing 1/8 scale collectible figures, mostly military stuff. And I was like, fuck this. And I got a job at the Grove, of all places.
Really?
Yeah, I got a job at the Grove, yeah.
Funny.
And I was kind of done with special effects. And the last movie I worked on was the Shane Black movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
with Robert Downey Jr.
That's a fun movie.
That's a great movie.
That's
yeah,
one of my favorites.
And I think it was like one of the first movies that Robert came back after he had done his stint in recovery. And it's funny because I did that movie. There's this big party sequence, and there's like a bunch of like body painting and like this kind of weird,
Like cage girls dancing and stuff.
So we did a lot of
I remember.
a lot of the body makeup. And a really good friend of mine, her name is Nellie Rakia, was the makeup designer for that sequence. And we were on non-union, and we got 3 days on that movie. But then by then I was just like, I'm done. I don't want to be on set anymore because it's too infrequent. So what ended up happening was I got a job. I did not know how to do any beauty makeup whatsoever. I didn't have $20,000 to drop on school,
Right.
which was the minimum requirement for that part of the course at some of the makeup schools here in Los Angeles. So what I ended up doing is I went over to the Grow and I applied, did not know how to do makeup, lied through my teeth, and got a position as a sales rep for the Laura Mercier counter.
Nice.
And so I started working for Laura Mercier at Nordstrom's.
That's awesome.
And what they do is they
Do you have any makeup horror stories?
Oh man, just so many. Because that area where the 3rd Street and Fairfax meet is Hasidic.
Yeah.
It's a big giant Hasidic community there. And so I'm a straight male and I can't touch women.
Oh.
Right. And so the people will come up to me and be like, oh well, can you get a female associate? I'm like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I was in my early 20s, and I ended up getting along very well with the account rep there, and she brought me on as a regional artist for the Laura Mercier team. So our accounts went from Santa Barbara to San Diego, and I would just go to like Barney's. I would, work at Nordstrom's, Bloomies, Macy's, wherever they had a makeup counter, I would go. But I ended up over at Fred Siegel in Santa Monica. And they were just like, we love you here. We'd love to have you on full time. The Laura Mercier counter there was kind of small, and they opened up this brand called Stefan Murray, who used to be the creative director for a brand called Cale Thomas, right? And he was the creative director for Shiseido. And it ended up in New York. I did a Gap spot here with Missy Elliott and Madonna, and I met Lucia Prioni, who is Madonna's makeup artist at the time, and her assistant Ozzy Salvatierra. And Ozzy and I still remain very good friends, and I ended up going to do, Diana von Furstenberg was launching a beauty line, and one of the only accounts they had in Los Angeles was Fred Siegel. So what ended up happening is I went to New York to go do the show, right, for New York Fashion Week. I can't remember if it was a fall or spring show. And I ended up going there, and Ozzy took me on another show, and I ended up, doing like 4 or 5 shows, and I was just like, fuck LA. So I got a big fat tax return, and I ended up just taking everything I had and moving to New York. And I ended up in Brooklyn, in New York for about 5 years, and I did about 13 seasons in New York Fashion Week. So I really kind of got my chops with working with
And
people
this is all just traditional beauty makeup.
That's
at
it,
this point,
yeah. And I mean, the avant-garde shows are generally in Paris, or the couture shows are definitely in Paris, but we were doing a lot of stuff from Jeremy Scott, who does a lot of stuff that's really wild. I mean, at the time, I was doing J. Mendel, we did Ralph Lauren, multiple seasons of that, and I worked for Tom Peugeot. I worked for a lot of amazing artists.
Ooh, I have a question. Is there a person that you kind of credit maybe for like your makeup inspirational breakout, like that you met, that somebody like just put you on the game, like, yo, I like you see in the Matrix for the first time kind of thing? Like, is there anybody that you met or worked with that was kind of almost inspirational to you in like your makeup game or style, what you learned?
I mean, this is the thing, is like styles change, you know what I mean? And some people thrive at certain aspects of what we do. But there's not, and that's kind of why I was telling the story, because there isn't kind of one thing that I kind of gravitated to that was, I could say, this is a benchmark in my career, right? It's this kind of the ends, not the means.
It's like a build-up.
Right.
It's just like doing the work over time, getting into 10,000 hours.
Right.
Doing the work.
Exactly. And the 10,000 hour analogy, of course, but there's also like, everybody has 10,000 bad drawings in them. But the good artists get the shitty ones out of the way first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what happened at the counter for Laura Mercier. It's like no one was looking at the shit I was just busting out, because we're just pushing lip gloss at that point. And palettes. And so what ended up happening in 2008, you guys know the economy took a shit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
what happened now?
For sure.
Yeah, I know, right?
America.
The economy took a shit, and I was working a lot for Polo, Ralph Lauren at the time, doing a lot of their online content, and that client went away immediately, and a lot of in a recession, a lot of people, the first thing that goes is luxury, right?
Yeah.
So nobody's doing the big shows anymore. They're doing kind of presentations, which are more like kind of like an audience walkthrough with the clothes on models, and they're not doing these big New York Fashion Week productions anymore. So what ended up happening is that my mom got sick, and my sister, who's a hairstylist, was living in Colorado at the time, And she came back to Los Angeles and she goes, I need your help. And I said, well, I can come after the fall shows. And she's like, okay, so that's February. It snowed over in New York, right? And all the girls that the models generally go from New York to London to Italy to Paris. So they're gone for weeks at a time. So it just gets really slow in New York and cold, right? It's snowing. And here I am in Los Angeles drinking beer by the pool, and it's sunny and I'm posting shit on Facebook, and my buddy Tim calls me, who I hadn't seen in, it had to have been 5 years, easily.
Yeah, because you said you did 13 seasons, and that's
there's two seasons a year, and that's not including Trunk or Resort, right?
Okay.
And which are 2 other shows that they have intermediately throughout the calendar year in New York. And so he calls me and he goes, hey, if you're going to be sitting by the pool, you can come help me. And he was working for a company called Spectral Motion that had done, they had done Hellboy at the time. They had done a lot of stuff with Guillermo, and they had done a bunch of Marvel stuff, right? They had done Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
They had done Fantastic Four. And Tim was a really integral part of a lot of those makeup, paint jobs, and designs. And so he goes, hey, man, if you're going to be on the couch, you can come help my ass paint. And I came back, and they had booked a show, and it was called Big Mama's House 2. And I was just doing a lot of the kind of stunt suits and stuff for Martin that he wore, and Margaret Prentice and Wes Welford were doing the applications in Atlanta, but we were doing all the pre-production build stuff here in Los Angeles.
Like for the suit?
Right.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is by that time that I left, Georgia had ended up getting a lot of tax breaks. And so a lot of productions were going there. And so what ended up happening is now I'm back in shops, right? And I had no clue that I was going to be working back in shops in a relative short amount of time. And what ended up happening is I had my apartment in New York, and my friend Christina, who was Paul Rubin's makeup artist at the time, went to go do Pee-wee on Broadway. And so she was subletting my apartment in New York, and I was in Los Angeles. And what ended up happening is, we went straight from Big Mama's House into the makeup design work that we did for X-Men First Class, which was a lot of stuff for Jen Lawrence. We had The Beast. The Beast ended up going to another shop, ADI, but we still had a good amount of work trying to kind of develop paint formulas and stuff like that, generally under the guise of Tim, to make this body makeup for the team on set. And then ended up going into Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunter. So I did a lot of work on that. There's a bunch of witches. There's a big giant troll in that I kind of helped paint. It was me, Neil Wynn, and Tim Gore. So what ended up happening is now I'm in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to work in shops. And then I get a job on, worked for a company called Frontline Designs, who did a lot of Sam Raimi stuff. They did all the Spider-Man suits. And I got into this kind of like specialty costume kind of thing, because the superhero genre was really coming up. And I started working on Man of Steel, and I painted a lot of stuff that Henry Cavill wore, right? All the practical stuff that he wore.
The suit?
The suit.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of paint work on that. And as far as, there's a lot of digital suit work in that movie, but there is a ton of practical work on that. We painted over 40 suits.
All right, I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you like 3 questions.
Sure.
So, first of all, before I have one question, I want to jump back to a little bit from some of the stories you explained when you were doing the beauty stuff. But real quick, what did you ever have a moment hit you when you're painting Superman's outfit that you're like, I'm fucking painting Superman's outfit?
Oh, 100%.
Like
100%.
the iconic piece.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a lot of that. I've had the honor, and I do it with a great amount of humility and gratitude when I work on kind of classic characters that are being reimagined. A lot, but I'm definitely a worker among workers, and it is a big collaborative process. And there is a team of artists that are always doing it. It is never one person doing anything at any time. Right, you have mold makers.
That's the way with all aspects of film,
and that's where the collaborative effort is. But I mean, it was really fun, and I didn't know that I was going to be on that show for as long as I was. So that to that date, that was the longest production run that I had on a shop, right? Because it was always kind of come in, because I'm a painter by trade. So I generally work at the ass end of a build, right? Because we're usually...
Because it's all together at that point.
All together.
You just gotta finish it up.
We're doing all the finishing work. And what ended up happening is I said, I'm in shops again, and I don't want to be here. And I started kind of looking to do more on-set stuff here. And so I just started doing music videos. Still can do a lot of commercials, because a lot of those commercials are IA agreement commercials. So I can't actually physically go onto those sets. But I just started kind of building this kind of relationship with producers, and I would not say no to anything. So when someone would say, I have $100,000 and we're going to go make this movie in Barstow, I did it.
Right.
Yeah, regardless of the fact. And it's funny because Nelly, who I talked about, that I did the Shane Black movie with, she actually called me out of the blue, and she was just like, hey, I have this director. He's asked me to design this creature, and I can't go to set because she's an instructor at a school here in Los Angeles. And she goes, and I don't want to let them use my design unless I choose the artist that does the application. So what ended up happening is she goes, I call these guys, they're really green, first-time director, first-time producer. They have like $100,000 to make this movie, and we go out, and me and my friend Christina Waltz, right, who I told you, she came out as my key, and we went out and we did this horror movie in the middle of the desert, right? And we shoot this movie. I think it was like a 3 or 4 week production shoot, and we drive back, and then she gets a movie called The Phoenix Incident, and we do that movie, and we go to Arizona, and we shoot on the South Ridge, and we do overnights there, and we shoot this kind of found footage movie about an alien abduction that actually it was loosely based off of the Phoenix Incident, where the UFO, the Phoenix Lights. And so we did that movie, and then there we go. We got two in the can. And then I just started doing movie after movie after movie after movie, and they were never more than a couple $100,000. They were like credit card movies. Yeah. And I ended up meeting another person in the department that referred me to the next movie that I ended up starting department heading now. And that was a movie called Eden, and it was with Ethan Peck, who's Gregory Peck's son. It was a very international cast of people, and they wanted to go shoot it in Malaysia. And so I went to Malaysia, and I department headed that. And Vincent Van Dyke, who's a local artist here, was starting his own company and did a lot of my build. And there was a lot of cannibalism in the movie. It was essentially like Lord of the Flies meets Alive. Okay. Right, so it's a soccer team that's in a plane crash, and they end up on a beach. and then
it's like, we crashed.
Yeah,
this
and then
nice.
they start eating each other.
This is nice. Oh, I got a question. Yeah. So do you do those actual makeup applications where you're putting like the mask on for like 3 hours on people and all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did a lot of that recently for Captain Marvel. So yeah, I was helping out on that. But what ended up happening through that whole process is the same producers that I did that movie in Barstow with ended up calling me to do a movie that at the time they were going to shoot in Alabama. And it was a larger budget movie that they had finally got some fucking good funding for, so I could do a proper build.
The makeup was so good, the first time around.
Well, they would always come to me singing for their supper with no money. And then I would be like, well, I can do this. And I would, go to vendors that I had relationships with, and I would get products.
Yeah, pull some favors.
Yeah, stock department, and then they would never be out of pocket for any of that. And so I did a lot of that. And then what ended up happening is that movie went to another effects house that was in state in order for them to get the incentive. They had to hire a certain amount of locals to get the credit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, fuck, now I'm out of a job. And then all of a sudden, Legacy Effects calls me. And a buddy of mine, Anthony Julio, called me, and he was just like, hey, I can get you an interview over there for Suicide.
And what year are we in now?
We're in probably 2000. I moved back here in 2010, so we're probably in about 2013 now, or 2014. And I get a job just as an entry-level painter. I asked for no money, like no money. And I ended up staying there for 3.5 years. I was there. And I got in there as an entry level. I was painting background characters for Suicide Squad, and then we went directly into X-Men Apocalypse, and I was doing a lot of the suit design, specialty painting work for Oscar Isaac's character, Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So we were doing a lot of that, and there was a lot of coverage, and then we went directly, and there was commercial. And then we immediately went into Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The first one was shot in England, and they were bringing the next one to Atlanta. And I was on this guy was working for the Drax character. So we were doing a lot of the pre-production build stuff for the Drax character because they had revised this makeup. I think it was like a 4.5 hour makeup in England.
And that was a suit?
That was a continuous piece of, or it was a multi-layered piece that overlaps.
Okay.
That's applied piece by piece. And so what ended up happening is they kind of revamped the makeup, which Legacy is kind of known for, with the lead of Brian Sipe, who's the makeup department head that I work with quite a bit. And he kind of gets the makeup down to like an hour, right? So they have more shoot time with Dave on set, and that we're talking doubles, stand-ins. So you have like 3 Draxes there at one time. So it's like a team of people just to get him in. And so I started, there, and then I got put on to do some stuff for Groot, which is the baby Groot. And I started doing a lot of that stuff. And then I met you.
Oh.
Yeah, I met you. And then
And it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, man.
So I meet this guy, Thomas, and I did a movie with Karen Kazumi, who did Destroyer, which is a fantastic
I have not
movie.
seen it yet. I am highly anticipating it, though.
She was, she had just done, I believe it was Girl Fight. And
Yeah,
she
Girl Fight was her first and only movie.
Jennifer's
Until
Body.
then. Oh, yeah, Jennifer's
She
Body.
directed Jennifer's Body, so she had a really good, firm understanding of effects.
Yeah.
And the director of this movie that I met Thomas on was doing the EPK. Ryan was doing the EPK on a movie called the Invitation.
Yeah.
Right, with John Carroll Lynch and
very good
Logan
movie.
Marshall Green. Really great movie to
Great
work
slow
on.
burn thriller.
Right, and I was the effects makeup department head for that movie. And there was not a lot going on in that movie. A lot of it got cut out. It was way gorier than...
Was it?
Yeah, because...
Was it gorier sooner also, or was it always going to be at that,
It was, well, right at the point where they're at the dinner and then kind of, John's character kind of comes up and just starts massacring people. There wasn't a lot going on. And that movie had already been halfway through production before I even got called to come in.
Really?
And I was coming in as a replacement for somebody else.
You just showed up with your buckets of blood.
Dude, it was so low tech. I think they gave me $500 for that whole build.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was way more violent than it was in the final cut. And so, I was making $200 a day. I'm just keeping track of all of my days so that I can, submit to get on the roster at 7:06. What ends up happening after that is, so I meet Ryan, and he comes up to me with this fucking script. And it's all, we're going to shoot this one movie, one location, limited storytelling, 2 actors. What was it, like 16, 18 days production time?
It was like 13 here and then 4 more
up in
upstate.
Rochester.
Yeah.
So he pretty much opens his home for me to just wreck. And I just built a shop downstairs.
But that house was built to get wrecked too,
Right.
which was very convenient.
Which comes back to that kind of indie kind of thing that kind of happened during this explosion of these big blockbuster movies, because technology had got to the point where now you can get an Alexa body and you can get a red body and you can get an anamorphic lens package and you can shoot 2 actors in one location with all natural light and make it photographically beautiful. And Lucas Garth, how do you say his last name?
Gaff.
Gaff, thank you. He's a Castilian dude. I think he's Chilean, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's from Argentina.
Argentina, thank you. I mean, but his camera team and him did such a beautiful job photographing.
He's a
that
true
movie.
artist.
I mean, it was beautiful to look at. And then when the sound design kind of came in, and this was kind of on the ass end of like this ex machina kind of thing where once again it's like two actors, one location. And what you can do is you can take a movie like that to market, right? And you can have a festival premiere for it and sell the movie to an online distribution company, whether it be domestically or internationally, and make money back. It's essentially what Ryan did. And he sold it to Sony Vega. I don't know what
Vega Baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, and I went around and did panels with him and saw that stuff. And it was pretty amazing what you could do with just a little bit of talent and just no money and just fucking do it.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest thing is just knowing how to do it.
Yeah. Of course, and you're going to make mistakes because I built all the effects for that movie in the apartment below his apartment.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so all of the suits.
We kicked the guy out.
Yeah, and I mean, craft service was right there, and we did all the beauty makeup, all the effects makeup, and the build in that one room. And I mean, you don't see those characters that much in that movie, but they were fully designed and produced characters. Whether or not they made it to camera or not is kind of irrelevant. It's to serve the story, right? And I always knew that they were going to be shot through a diopter and that they were going to be out of focus. But I really went just bug-ass wild on that. And so we ended up going up to I met Thomas there, and about that time, I finally got my eligibility to get onto a roster here in Los Angeles, and I ended up on a TV show. I get in the union.
And for the people that don't know, that means
getting into the makeup union here, which is our local 706.
Which is the goal. The ultimate goal.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I will say this, it is better to be in the club than to not be in the club.
Always.
Always. Regardless of your thoughts or ideas about it.
Yeah.
Right. So what ends up happening is I get into Los Angeles, I get into the union, and I've had these relationships with department heads outside of the trailer. And what ends up happening is people like Aaron Kruger, McCash, and Mike McCash, ask me to come help out on Horror Story. Right. And so I get to start helping out on that. And then I get introduced to Kim Green, who gave me a home at Arrested Development Season 5. So I was on Arrested Development for Season 5, just doing stuff. And I remember, this is where it all comes back to that part where I walk into the trailer to do a bald cap, right?
Yeah.
It's just a bald cap. It's like just setting the table. It's a bald cap. It's something that you have to know how to do. And I do a bald cap, and they cut the bald cap before I get there. And she shows up and she goes, well, I already booked you today. Go hop in the background trailer. And I go hop in the background trailer, and guess what I'm doing? Beauty makeup. And she comes in, she goes, you know how to do beauty makeup? And I'm like, yeah, don't we all?
Isn't that a prerequisite?
It did not even occur to me that people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And special effects.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is I do a beauty makeup, she goes, what are you doing tomorrow? Right? And she goes, I always need hands. There's cowboys coming in. There's, Iraq vets coming in. And so we're doing mustaches, we're doing beauty makeups, and we're doing clubs. We're doing all this stuff. And she keeps me busy.
Yeah.
And she just keeps me busy. And then, Legacy calls me, and I hop onto a show before the Legacy show starts. Legacy calls me, and they have me come in and help out, do some preliminary tests for a movie called Captain Marvel, which is coming out this, I believe next month.
Yeah.
And I reconnect with Brian, who is the department head, and I'm just helping out. I don't hear anything about it, and I go hop on a Jim Carrey show that's being.
I'm dying up here.
I'm dying up here.
I saw that.
And I was on I'm dying up here, and I was on that show for 4.5 months as a regular. Kind of in the trailer, kind of just as a utility guy, going to set, watching actors, cleaning actors up, getting them out, just kind of just doing what's asked of me. And it was funny because I started to really realize how, I showed up and I was just like, you guys have lights. Like, you have heaters, you have trailers. Yes, it's 4 a.m, but this is way better than it could be.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been there. recently to when it wasn't like that. Where I'm showing up with lights and tables and chairs in my own car, because if I don't bring it, I don't have it.
They're not there,
Yeah, I'm bringing extension cords. I'm bringing like all this stuff, which I was totally fine doing for the longest time. But that chapter in the book was over, right? And so I start working on these bigger productions, and then you know, I'm Dying Up Here ends, and I hop onto Captain Marvel, and I'm there for like 3 or 4 months, right? Just kind of just doing whatever I'm asked in the department. And you know, those beauty chops really kind of came into play, and I ended up working with this guy named Todd McIntosh, who was the department head on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
Oh, nice.
Right? This was back in the day. And he was working on a TV show called The Kids Are All Right, right? Which was based in 1977, right? Or 1974 Los Angeles. So it was all period stuff once again. This is just a series of period shows that I kept getting on, and just learning craft, you know, like just getting my hands in something every single day, because up to that point, all those movies that I had worked on before were literally a bald cap and a paint job.
Yeah.
Like, we had no money for wigs. We had no money for doubles. We had no money for contact lenses. We had no money for teeth. And personally, I was
No money for teeth.
No
That just
money for
sounds funny.
teeth. Like, I was literally doing the hair, the makeup, and the special effects. So it was just like all that other stuff, it just had to be done after in post, because I just could not do it. And so what ended up happening is I worked with him, and I just remember him telling me back in the 90s, he said, your beauty makeup will inform your special effects makeup, and your special effects makeup will inform your beauty makeup. They're always the same concept. Highlight, contour. That is it. And once you start getting into blood, like just thinking about something in a different way, you're already limiting yourself and your capabilities. And so just going back to like what happened with Kim Green, right? I could have just come in for that bald cap and fucking kicked rocks.
Yeah.
But because I knew how to do beauty, she ended up having me stay on. And it was a really good experience for me to see how useful it is. And since I came in with just this, just a little bit of willingness, right, to just fucking go for it. Because my friend who I got in the unit with, she told me, she goes, look, Cale, she goes, you're not going to have to worry about your technical artistic abilities moving forward. You're going to have to worry about politics. And I was like, what?
Yes,
I just want to go do makeup. I don't want to worry about navigating political aspects of it. And there's a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of like that old version of me, that these old experiences where we do these $200,000 movies, which I kind of really appreciate, because it's a very hands-off kind of thing. It's just like, this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
We don't
Let's
even
see
have
let's
money.
see if we can make it
You
work.
can't afford to judge me.
Yeah, you can't come to me and say, well, this isn't working. We need a resculpt and we need makeup tests. There was literally none of
You
that.
don't have the money for that.
It's like, oh, you're done? Okay, perfect. Let's use
Right.
it.
And now you get into these experiences where you can really finesse a makeup, and you can really spend a good amount of time dialing something, right? And that was a very new experience to me. And sometimes I always have this kind of atrophy, right? Where I'm just like, fuck, I'm like, let's just shoot this shit, right? And that was the thing also about like the indie thing, is just like, you kind of relatively know what's going on from time to time. But when you get into, you go from a $200,000 movie that has an 18-day shoot schedule to a $200 million studio IP.
It's like a 3-month shoot
It's like
or
this
something.
the protracted kind of thing with multiple units and stunts and all these things. You're just like, you're literally sitting there in dismay. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And it takes a lot of getting used to. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Right? Because one of the things that I do is I show up early. I always stay late. I try to have the best attitude as I possibly can. I try to do the best art I can do at any given time with the tools and materials that are provided to me, and be kind.
Yes.
That kindness thing has gotten me more jobs than you can possibly imagine. Because I looked at my hours last year for 2018, and I did 2,900 hours. So if you average that into a normal work week, that's 50 hours a week, but I was always working 70 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Because you work your ass off for 4 months and then you're off for a month, and that kind of balances it off. And to have, you need to have a certain amount of work ethic to do this, because it is a monster that will swallow you up and spit you. It is,
once you get into production, it's every single day,
and it's not personal.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you, and the more you make it about you, the faster you see yourself out the door.
Yeah.
Right. And so if there was one thing that I would kind of say is, you really, really have to make a lot of personal sacrifice to do this. Like, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't drive new vehicles. I purchased every vehicle I had with cash.
Yeah.
Right. I don't own a home. Right. Because I need the flexibility to, like, I don't have any felonies. Right.
Yeah.
So I can travel internationally at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And that was very useful as well when I was over at Legacy, because they would show up to me, can you go to Vancouver tonight? Absolutely.
Just more added versatility. You can do beauty, makeup, travel internationally.
And all this stuff. And I would definitely say, like, it's a fucking grind. For sure. There are long times for setups in between where you're sitting there and you're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
And you are not.
It's like, I finished this creature
alone.
makeup 8 hours ago, and this guy's been sitting on the couch in full makeup
And guess
for 5
what?
hours.
We're not getting to it.
and
Until tomorrow.
We got to be out of this. It's taillights out of this location. The FSO is here. He's kicking us out.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like, you're kind of just like, you're just kind of helpless, and you really have to have a certain amount of acceptance and just surrender.
You got to roll with it.
Surrender to this.
If you raise hell because your creature makeup's not going to make it on cam today, then probably not going to get called back for the next shoot.
Of course, and this is the thing, is like we are there as a part of a machine, right?
Yeah.
And as long as I am in harmony with myself and my department, it doesn't really matter what fucking chaos is going on with the weather.
Yeah.
Novel idea, right? Like, just a thunderstorm just blows through Malaysia, and we're like, that's it, we're stopping. Like, it blew the lighting balloon off the thing, and we don't have any more helium to get this thing back up in the air. So now we're gonna have to just light everything practically, and it's just like, you just have to just be able to go with it. But this is the thing, is like, I love to travel, right? I love art. First and foremost, like, if there was one thing that you asked me that I identify as, and that is an artist first and foremost, right? But I'm also, I love employment. Like, I love working. I love working with my hands, and I also love people. Like, and this is the thing, is that I can't do it alone. And if I'm not working on a movie, I'm watching a movie. It is a part of me that it's kind of hard for me to describe. And it's like, people get into this industry for various reasons, and I can't speak for other departments, but I can only speak for myself and the things that I've experienced. Is like, you have to literally give everything you got. And you see people kind of come in for certain reasons, and they get in on things for certain reasons. But ultimately, if you can just do what you need to do and stay calm and kind and do the best work you possibly can, it doesn't matter, because they're going to go away.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like, it's like they don't breathe the same air.
Yeah.
Right? So they can only maintain that kind of existence in that world for a certain amount of time, because, a lot of us don't have kids, right? Because we can't have relationships.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you have a relationship with someone that comes home at 8:30 at night and sleeps and wakes up at 3 a.m. in the morning to be on set at 4 a.m.? It's like, you have to make a lot of concessions to this. And a lot of that thing, people can't fucking hang.
Yeah.
They're like, I want kids or whatever, or I want more money. And it's just like, if you're doing this for money, you are doing this for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Go get another job, because when it comes down to it, I am a laborer.
Yeah.
That is what I am. And a plumber is also a laborer.
Yeah.
Right? And when you go to get your car maintenance, that is done by a laborer too. And it's 54.95 scale to walk into any place to get your car even looked at without being touched. Whether or not 100% of that goes to the business or the employee itself, it doesn't really matter. That's essentially what you're doing. And you're a majority of the time, if you're working regularly as a makeup artist, you're not going to get more than that.
Yeah.
Because that is a pre-negotiated rate that is provided for you through the contract that you go in under. Now, you can also get more money at being a personal, right? Which I've done before as well, but not to the experience that a lot of other people have. Like, I'm working with James, she was James Wood's personal makeup artist for like fucking 17 years.
That's right.
Right? It's just like, you get those kind of jobs. I worked with Will Smith's personal, and she's done tons of movies like Tony Scott. Like, I learned so much from her. Just like, and it wasn't even like an artistic thing that I learned from her. It's just learning like to just have a different experience as a different role in the department. You know what I mean? Because I had been doing everything by myself for so long, like the hair, the makeup, the special effects, all this stuff. It kind of this new experience of just, this is all you're doing today. You're literally going to go paint the legs of this person white, and then you're going to clean them up, and then you're going to come back tomorrow and you're going to do it again. And you're just like, wait, what else am I going to do? Like, that's it.
Like, bring a Game Boy to set, because you're going to be hanging out.
Yeah, and essentially what ended up happening is after I did Captain Marvel Wrapped, I ended up hopping onto a movie called Call of the Wild, and which is a new movie that stars Harrison Ford. There's been many adaptations of this movie, but they've never been able to shoot the movie in its entirety. And they shot that movie up in Santa Clarita, and it takes place in 1989 or 1889 in Yukon.
Right.
Right.
So the territories looks a little different.
Right. So they built a big city and they pipe in snow. And now I'm working in snow and it's 80 degrees outside. Yeah. And I'd never worked with a DP before, but he was Steven Spielberg's DP. His name's Janusz. And I mean, he just photographed the movie so beautifully. And the time, but I just want to say, I was just a team member on that as well. Like, I was, Mike Smithson and Karen Myers actually were Harrison's personal. And then Sabrina Wilson and Deborah Danover were actually on most of first team with Dan and the rest of the cast. And I was kind of just doing the background, just making like people with mustaches and frozen exposure makeups and icicles running down their face. And it was funny because that introduced me a whole community of people that I had never even knew existed, was this world of background, right? And you can literally work for 30, 40 years just doing that.
Yeah.
And no one will ever know who you are. You'll never get a screen credit. But you'll buy a house. You'll put your kids through college. Right?
Exactly.
And there's that kind of thing where I kind of always go back to, and it's just like I said, I love working, so I'm just gonna work. And it doesn't matter what Tim Gore asked me to do when I was 15. He handed me a broom and he said, go sweep the back of the shop. Guess what? I just swept the back of the shop. That's all I'm doing. It's just in a completely different context, in a different environment, but the idea is the same. Just as the same as Todd McIntosh telling me that a beauty makeup is the same as a creature makeup. It is the same. There is nothing different in the mindset of what you're doing. Artistically, the approach is the same. When you work, your work ethic is exactly the same. You are just working. And sometimes it's just like, it's easy to let your ego kind of just run because you're like, there are some cliches about my department that seem to be true and I partake in as well. And it's just like, I think I'm the most important the department on the set, right? Like, when are you getting to my thing? And why isn't this happening? And it's just like, at a certain point, I just have to remember what my ultimate goal there is, right? And that is to create a memorable character, whether it's memorable or not, and just show up. And just do the best I can.
Be part of the team. You know what I mean? Like, you mentioned that you like being on a movie set as a kid. You're like, man, I just want to be on a movie set. And I got that same kind of bug when I first started acting and doing stuff. It's something about the camaraderie of that whole movie set process. Like, it's all these people almost like ants, working on one thing where everybody's got their own different sections.
That's the analogy you come up with?
Well,
ants?
Ants are because they like this big network. It's all about work ethic. Everybody has their own specific job and whatnot. And there's almost a job satisfaction to helping something beautiful get created. You know what I mean?
I mean, and it like we were talking about earlier, it was great, like that experience of just there's some kind of just fulfillment that I get, right? Where I'm sitting there and regardless if something I did makes it or doesn't make it, it's knowing that I was a part of something that was bigger than myself, right? Yeah. If that makes any sense. Yeah. And that has to be kind of the through line of everything I do. That regardless of whether it made it into the movie, into the invitation, that I was there as service to the director that's telling a story, right? And I mean, that is a big part of me. So when I approach a situation, it's always with that. Yeah. Always with that. And all the other shit I leave because it doesn't serve anything. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve the production. And it's definitely not helpful. It's just like, I try to just simplify things to their basic form so that ultimately that is a manageable thing that I can be a part of. When all this other stuff kind of gets in, like schedules and money, and you know, a lot of times we're like tired and we're hungry. And like, I remember I went to the awards ceremony. Local 706 has a Guild Awards, and they had their Guild Awards last night, which is kind of like our kind of Academy Awards, right? And a lot of friends.
It was last night?
It was last night.
Nice.
The Novo Theater.
It's your
downtown.
SAGs.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like our BAFTAs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what ended up happening was I was literally there was an event at the Roosevelt the night before that I went to, and I met up with a friend from mine from I'm Dying Up Here, and I was literally sitting there, and we like sat at the restaurant, and you know I was wearing like a suit. Right? I was just like, well, I'm not wearing clothes that have dirt all over them. Or I'm not wearing like giant boots so I can walk in snow. Like, it was like really great. I'm like sitting down and I'm sitting there and we're just catching up. And I'm sitting there and I have a fork and a knife in my hand. And I realize that I have not eaten food with a real fork and a real knife since Christmas.
Damn.
And I was just like, and I was talking about this earlier. It's like everything I get is either in like tinfoil, right, so they can stay warm and handle, or in a cardboard box coming off a catering truck,
right,
and like you know,
with
like,
plastic utensils,
right, that bend when you're trying to use them. So you start to order stuff that you can eat with your hands because, and like that shit gets old. And I know it doesn't really seem like it would, but you're like, oh wait, like it's kind of nice, like just eating something. But this is the thing, is like I'm a pirate, and like whenever you do these things, it's literally like
I like that reference. That's what I was gonna go with instead of ants. Pirate ship, motherfucker.
It's like a traveling circus a lot of the time. It's like living at Burning Man. Like that shit's cool for like a week or two, but like let's hop into like deep water and stay there for 6 months, and after a while you're just like, dude, I just don't want to sleep in sand. How about the novel idea of that? Like, you know what would be really great? Doing my laundry. You start getting like really practical when you start spending a lot of time on set. You're just like, oh, you know what comes up, like don't you want to go out? And I'm like, you know what I need to do? I need to shower. I need to do my laundry. That's kind of what I need to do today. And then sleep. Because I can only speak for myself. Like I don't do well like mentally or like emotionally or physically if I'm like doing that 4-hour thing. Like I really need a 6-hour kind of thing. And luckily, you know, going from the indie world where we aren't a lot of turnarounds, we actually get those in the film industry. But if you think about it this way, last Wednesday,
12-hour,
I did 18.7 hours. So that was almost a 20-hour day, and that's not including a commute, right? So if we're shooting in Palmdale or West Covina or Long Beach or Oxnard or, you know, Compton,
wherever, hour or two each direction.
Yeah, you're talking about an hour.
I mean, fucking 3 if it's rush hour.
Right. So there you are. There's your 20 hours right there. So you got 4 hours sleep. And you know, I know my department has pre-calls quite a bit, but I know Transpo gets there before we do.
Oh yeah. Well, and those guys make a shitload of money also.
Because of those long hours and stuff.
Yeah,
and the liability, I'm sure.
They're under a completely different. They're Teamsters.
Yeah,
and if you like, it's funny if you look at like the history of the Teamsters.
Union.
The Teamsters aren't just film workers. They're like everything. So any commodity that you have in North America that you get has gone through a Teamster's hands. Yeah. Your food, this water, this whatever this.
A lot of times, the drivers on set will make money than everybody else on the set.
Damn.
I heard drivers on Amazing Spider-Man 2 walking away with $10,000 checks for a week.
No
Damn.
shit. One time,
Well,
a driver
they're
was
taken
telling
care
me
of.
about how he picked up his son in the Ferrari, the Porsche.
Yeah,
but he wanted him to pick him up in the Ferrari because his son's friends would have thought it was cooler.
Yeah.
So he thought it was funny. And I was like, well, you know what? I just ate a Twinkie on set, not making.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And you see like wild stuff.
Yeah.
Like I've just seen stuff where I'm just
Power
like,
of the union.
I'm like,
And now that's why it's the ultimate goal.
well,
It
not only
sets
that,
everything up.
there's a considerable amount of insanity that you see going on where you're just like, what? You're like,
Yeah.
wait, how did this happen? Right? Where you're sitting there and something is just either not working or there's a technical problem or there's a scheduling issue. And you're like, wait, you guys collectively, if you take career-wise, some of the departments, there's hundreds of years of film experience amongst a team of people.
Mm-hmm.
And when the most common mistake that I see is non-communication, right? And just checking out. Like people just fucking phoning it in. And you're just like, wait a second. You didn't take a second to ask who this person was, what ethnicity they were, right? How long their hair was, if they have tattoos, right? And the guy shows up and he's like fully sleeved. And then
like the casting director's like, well, this guy's 6'3", he'll work.
Central Casting sent this guy over. I remember I did LeBron's double for
What
Gary
they do,
Gray.
set over a white guy?
No, but it was like it's LeBron's double, and like this guy comes in and he was fucking super cool, and we're out in like Tustin at some like fucking it was like a Zeppelin manufacturing plant from like
Really?
the 40s. It was a giant hangar, and we're doing this commercial for Nike, and literally the guy comes in and he's completely sleeved.
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, what's going on? And he goes, yeah, man, I just got this. He had a lot of Marvel tattoos. I remember that.
yeah.
He had like Venom, and he had like this fresh tattoo of Iron Man right here. And it was all just, it was scabbed over, and you have to put A&E oil over the
that's gonna
top of
fuck
it.
up those tats.
So I'm like, all right, well, we got to get rid of these tattoos and put LeBron's tattoos on you because he's his photo double.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, here we go. And just started spraying him down with this plastic. It's like an acrylic-based makeup that we use that won't come off. It's like what they use on Tom Hardy for Bane.
Yeah, it's not going to come off without a chemical reaction.
No.
Yeah.
And like I have to use an oil to scrub it off of his body. Like he can literally go surfing and it's not going to come off.
Wow.
And then we put the tattoos over the top of it. And so, that's a part of the job. And yes, we knew about that. Like The Rock's double has a lot of tattoos well. So they'll have to like paint out his tattoos and then put The Rock's tattoos on him depending on wardrobe and stuff like that. But that is like a fine oiled machine, but it's kind of when it comes down to like the additionals level and like the start work finishes on the call sheet, you start to see like people walk in, you're like, dude, you don't look like that guy. Yeah, and you're just like, well, all right, I got to shave your beard. And he was like, oh, you can't shave my beard. I'm day playing on Seals next week, and I'm on Westworld the next week. And then you're just like, well, all right, well, what do you want me to do?
You either have to leave or take the paycheck today and not the one tomorrow.
Yeah, but you
Do
see
you
stuff
have
like that all the time.
Do you have any stories of like maybe any on-set nightmares that have occurred?
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I was gonna
many.
say even
So
more.
I mean, that's a
many.
pretty good
Even
one.
more than like on set, because I was going to bring up, it's pretty important to note how you serendipitously fell from effects makeup essentially to beauty for 5 years and then came back into it. So throughout the longevity of your career, is it fair to say that you have a ridiculous story?
Oh, dude, there's so many. I've seen,
Every set's got to have a ridiculous story.
So
Dude,
what would you?
so
what's
many.
what's one that comes to your mind that you are like, oh, this
fuck,
stands out?
one that I can talk about?
Yeah, that you can't tell.
No, tell us one.
Any.
Tell us one that we have to delete.
Man,
Just kidding.
okay, I'll tell you this story, and it was about that movie in Malaysia, right?
Okay.
And there was this actor, I'm not going to say who it was.
Yeah, be vague. Be
Who
vague.
shows up to set, right? And everybody's like trying to like look good, right? Because it's like this ensemble cast, and there's like a Castilian pop star and a Mexican singer, and they're all like really like have this international appeal to them. And they're all very successful in their own countries. And so that's why they were cast in the movies, so that they could sell the movie in those markets.
Yeah, of course.
But they didn't all get along, and they were accustomed to a certain lifestyle that they have.
The foreign actors?
Yeah, the foreign actors.
Okay.
And what ended up happening was that was not. Yeah. So it's just like you eat what they give you.
Yeah.
And you shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Or, you have to get up and at 4 a.m. for your makeup call. Like that's it. And a lot of them were inexperienced as well. And I remember there was one instance where this guy who dies relatively early in the script. Mm-hmm. Right. And he dies in the script. But this is a very small location. It's just a beachhead on an atoll in the South China Sea that we have to take an hour boat ride there and back.
That's awesome, by the way.
Varying weather conditions. And it's during Raya, which is their holiest, it's their Ramadan. So the entire crew is Muslim and they're fasting.
Cranky as fuck.
So now they're not drinking water.
And they're working 18 hours.
And they're working 18 hours with no cover whatsoever. There's no craft. There's like craft service. I remember asking for water and they kept bringing me like Nescafe. And I'm like, no, like water. Like, I just need water. And then they would bring me like something that was like this big. And I'm like, can you bring me 10 of those? Because I'm like 200 pounds. I need to just drink more water. And I remember like it just started wearing, like we weren't making our days. Too many, like when I see a director that's taking 15 takes, there's two things that are going on. One, there's a technical problem, but if it's an easy shot, I can relatively figure out that this person is inexperienced and isn't getting what they want, which ends up pissing the actors off. Because now the actors are just like, I've done this 5 times. What are you not getting from me? Like, what can I do to make this, like, and I've seen it, like, recently. They're just like, dude, like, you're like,
you need to tell me what you want.
Super takey.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but that eats your day. And then you start losing prep time at the top of the day and the back of the day, and it starts fucking up your schedule for the ADs, right? So what ended up happening is these guys start getting their call time earlier and earlier, and they're like looking good, but they're actually dying in the movie. So I have to do like these exposure makeups, like almost like Pirates of the Caribbean, where their skin is kind of sunburned. They're getting chapped. They're getting gaunt. I have contact lenses that they have to go into. They're getting jaundice. They're malnourished. And I was just like, the more you guys do this, like the more makeup I'm gonna have to put on you. And I wanted to go like more towards The Impossible with Ewan McGregor, that movie about the hurricane that comes into Thailand and Phuket. Yeah. And so I wanted those makeups were very loosely based off of those makeups because I wanted it to look like this, like, they're dying.
Yeah.
And they have to resort to eating people. Right. And so we're doing this stuff, and this one guy, he dies in the movie. And he's on the call sheet for the next day. And he was just like, why am I on the call sheet? I'm like, dude, you're in every scene. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, dude, you're in every scene. Look at the call sheet. Look, here's the day out of date. Here's the one-liner. You're working every single day until we wrap. And he was just like, I don't understand. And I'm like, not only are you working every day, but your makeup, since you're dead, has to get longer and longer and longer because you're dead. Yeah. You're decomposing in the background.
It's going to change every day.
Every day. And he was like, what? And I'm like, dude, didn't you read the script? And he goes, oh, I only read my part. I'm like, dude, it's a 90-page script. You read 10 pages? Like, how am I accountable for that, right? And so what ended up happening was he stopped showing up.
Oh.
And you're just like, dude, now I'm sending a rep from my department to go knock on his door to get his ass out of bed so he would start showing up. And then he would just make it difficult on us. And it's just like, and that's where
is he local?
Yes, he's an LA guy, but I haven't really seen him in a lot of stuff, and it was a new experience for me just to be like, oh, people just aren't there. Yeah. They're not communicating. They're just kind of there for like glory and prestige. They're not there for like when I really work with an actor that will go to any length to get the character, like physically or you know, like mentally will go there to get a character, I really respond to that very well, right? Yeah. So you know, I recently worked on a movie where I worked with this new guy. His name's Bobby Soto, and he was just such a fucking awesome guy to be around. He was young. He was
not the biggest talent on set.
No, but dude, just like such a fucking cool guy. You know what I mean? Young, always showed up early, always stayed late, always was prepared, right? And you're just like, this guy really wants it. You know what I mean? And I would literally, I remember telling him this. I saw this on, it was an episode of Jon Favreau used to have a show called Dinner for Five.
Yep.
Yeah, when it's
Great
on
show.
IFC, right? And he would have like, you know, everybody from like Marilyn Manson to like, you know, Cameron on the show. And it was just like guys and actors, and they would all get together. And I remember there was a Peter Berg story that was really interesting to me. But one thing that John Landis said, he goes, the makeup department is the only department on a set whose sole job is to touch another person. Right? So wardrobe, generally, after they go through the fitting, their clothes are provided for them in a trailer and they're left there, and the actor dresses themselves depending on what kind of costume. If it's a specialty costume, and they have a key set costumer that helps them get ready. But for the most part, if it's just like The Office, it's just your, you know, there's your clothes. Go put it on. But the makeup artist and the hair department are the only people that touches other people, right? So there's, and this is kind of, you know, hard to explain unless you do it for a living. But whenever an actor is hot, I'm hot. Whenever an actor is cold, I'm cold. Whenever that actor is wet, I'm wet. Whenever that actor is like, is freezing, I'm freezing because I'm no more than 5 or 10 feet from them at any given time.
You got your bag, you're making sure that everything's looking good.
Right. So if that guy's going in the drink, guess what? I'm going in the drink too, right? Because I got to do resets. He gets hit in the head with an oar. Every take, I got to go over there and spray blood on him. So I have to be like treading water out there, waiting for the shot to go over so I can go reset. And like a lot of, in my experience, a lot of other departments don't share that, right? So you can sometimes create a bond with another actor. And I, you know, whether or not he was aware of that or not, I was definitely just like, this guy is going for it. So like whenever I wanted to do an effect or the director requested something, he would sit there and just let me do it. And he would go into like these really like miserable situations. I mean, we were shooting at like teardowns in Compton. I mean, there's roaches crawling
Inglewood area
all over him, dude. There's roaches crawling on him on the ground.
Oh God!
And like the guy was just willing
built for it.
to do it. And mind you, there was roaches crawling on me too.
Yeah.
Well, there's a bond through suffering. Right. You know, and that's just human. You know, it's like you go through a, damn, man, we just went through the trenches together, you know? And it's like,
true.
you know, that's the connection you make. And I love the fact that you and your team are especially so driven to get in there and do whatever it takes with that mentality. And that mirrors great actors, you know?
You know, I'm a big sci-fi guy.
Yeah.
But I love horror movies, but if you gun to my head, I'm always going to be sci-fi at heart. So if I have a choice of doing a slasher movie, which I would do, right? Or a war movie with the same effects. Like, I always kind of look at it in this context. Like, I would rather work on a movie like The Godfather, Goodfellas, or Saving Private Ryan, because those movies are very violent movies. They're very gory movies, and they have tons of makeup effects in them. Or a movie like a slasher flick.
Yeah.
Right, where it's kind of just gratuitous, kind of for gross out sake.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And I've done those movies.
Almost cookie cutter.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing every time.
I've done those movies. So I always kind of lend that more to the sci-fi genre because it definitely, like the movie Aliens, all right, that was a big, huge impact on me when I was growing up, right? And it was another James Cameron thing. And then when I got to work with James Cameron in the limited capacity that I did get to actually work with him, was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, meeting
sure.
John Landau, who was the producer of Titanic, and doing his makeup for an attraction reel for Avatar. I don't think it's Universal is where that attraction is. And then getting to actually do camera tests for Avatar. That was a big deal for me, right? Because I remember watching The Terminator with my older brother in like the 80s.
Yeah.
Like on VHS.
Yeah.
And you know, that kind of coming full circle and just getting the honor to and you know, to work with some of these guys that I've looked up for so many years. And it's kind of cool because a lot of those guys are retiring. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing with Quentin, like those guys aren't kind of going to be around anymore, you know? And there's going to be guys that are coming in to kind of fill those spaces as far as storytelling is concerned. And those are new relationships that get formed and collaborations. But those ones where you're just like, man, I wish that band never broke up. I'm never going to get to see them ever again. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they get back together 20 years later to do a tour and you get a ticket.
Yeah.
And then you're front row and then you're like, fuck, this is rad. It was kind of like that experience.
The metaphor of your life.
Right, exactly. Because it's like I grew up as like a skater punk kid in the Valley and I listened to so much music. I played in bands. I did all kinds of stuff. And I remember like Fugazi. Right, I remember like Fugazi, like they broke up, and I was never gonna see them ever. And then all of a sudden they toured, and I was just like, I got a ticket to go see Fugazi, and I got to see Fugazi, and I was just like, this is the shit. Like this is the shit. And I mean, it was just like it brings me back to those experiences, and I'm just like,
it contributes to the passion and it contributes to your,
for sure.
your overall interest.
Yeah, for sure. But as far as like working with big actors, I always have to maintain the same ideals as I do with any actor. They are just a person and they don't want to be.
They're just people.
Some people do though.
Yeah, well,
some people do, and you get them, and it's kind of this negotiation that you have to do going in because you're just like, I need to just feel this out. Right, because like the show I'm working on now, one actor likes to be very quiet. Like, because their time in the chair is their time to prepare for the day. They're going through their sides, they're eating something, they're kind of just like getting ready for like what's coming. And like I am not like that. Like I play music.
Yeah.
Like, I like to have music going whenever I'm working.
You're a chatty guy too.
Yeah. And I have a low voice, which carries.
Yeah.
And it'll carry across the trailer. But I'll never forget the one time I worked on a show where the entire cast hated each other. I mean,
Can you say the show?
Dude.
like Real Housewives or
I think it's
something.
still on air.
No, it is not on air anymore. And there was a bunch of production problems as far as like the writing was concerned. It was the first time I really worked on a comedy before. But these are it was a big ensemble cast. People with Academy Awards, people that started on the show when they were really young and now are working on Aaron Sorkin movies. It's just like, it's just people have just grown up and like ideas change. And I remember walking in, it was a 10-person trailer. So just to give everybody an idea of a 10-person trailer, that's 5 hair makeup stations and 5 makeup stations, right? And so there's 10 people just in the chair and an additional 10 people that are working on them. So there's 20 people in there at once.
And it's all one row.
And it's all one row and it just goes all the way down. And I walked into that trailer and you could hear a pin drop. And I was just like, fuck that. Because I was in the background trailer just doing like the hippies.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, dude, the department had came in the trailer because I had music on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, fucking, I'm loving this, right? I'm just like, just doing my job. And the department head comes in and she goes, I just want to sit in here for a minute. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, hey, what's going on? She goes, it's just fucking miserable vibe in there. And it's just been a long shoot. And there's multiple things going on. But like, it's just an experience that I wasn't I'm at odds with my team, you know what I mean, for other reasons. And she was just like, I just want to just relax. And I'm like, well, that's what this should be. We should, like, if you feel like, yes, it's a grind and yes, there's a lot going on, but like, you should really be having fun doing it. Not all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to work.
Sometimes you got to work, and sometimes you got to eat a bag of dicks and take one for the team. But at the same time, you should really be viewing it as a pleasure.
Yeah.
Right. And as like, for me, I know a lot of people don't share that same ideal, but it is like with like an immense amount of like gratitude that I come to this.
Well, it's such a unique field of work anyway. It's like,
yeah,
nobody's going to find themselves in that position. So not many people are going to be able to relate to you working on Captain Marvel
Well,
and
'cause
talking to Tarantino.
We basically are trying to get paid to do what people do and watch for fun. You know, it's almost just like NFL or NBA players. So you kind of got to have an appreciation to it. It's not like your regular just humdrum working at a corporate job, just banging on a computer. What we do is there's a certain amount of like, you know, you tell your parents you want to do this when you grow up, they kind of look at you like you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, they
You're
laugh.
like, what, you going to
They
start?
don't even understand that it's a
You know
job.
what I mean? Yeah, but it's actually a job, and it's something that, like you said, people should really appreciate that aspect of it, that we are actually doing what motherfuckers want to do for fun.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And
You know what I
hence,
mean?
We get to play
hence the whole
make-believe.
idea of the show, right? Isn't the idea of the show to expose people that don't necessarily have the resources to work in the film industry and let them know how
it's like where else would
Yeah.
they get this
Slice
advice
of
other
life.
than from somebody like you?
But I mean, it's a privilege
Yeah.
that I got to grow up in Los Angeles.
oh yeah, that's a huge factor for so many people that grow up here. that want to
So
get into the
huge,
industry.
man. And it's just like I hear people shitting on LA all the time, and I'm like, listen, I'll take LA over, and I've been to a lot of places, man. I'm like, I'll take LA over a majority globally. I'm like, you don't know how good you have it here until you've been in a jungle being eaten by fucking mosquitoes. Like, you're like, no, I'm good. Like, I'll eat that hour of traffic. But for me, like,
Oh, you're preaching to the choir, man. A lot of us grew up in Florida.
yeah, I mean, well, this is the thing is like we did like a couple days on Captain Marvel for doing reshoots down in Baton Rouge, and I mean, dude, one of the notes I got from the department head literally said, "Mama Gator's angry, right? Watch the nest." Right. And it also says we caught 2 copperheads behind the craft service table. It also said that there are big bugs.
Yeah.
Big flying bugs, stinging bugs, big stinging bugs, big flying stinging bugs. Like it was just like this like thing, and I'm like, oh no, like I'm.
And this is just Baton Rouge.
And
It's
like,
swamps.
I can just hear that in the Cajun accent too, coming through. They're big bugs, big flying sting bugs. Big mama get angry, stay away from nothing
Big
else.
flies,
Well,
stinky bugs.
this is the thing is like people don't
Hey,
even, like
hey.
you see a movie and you relatively are like, oh, this takes place in the summer, and it's fall, somewhere freezing, and you're just like, no, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like this sucks, but for as much as it sucks, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. So aside from all the shit that we've gone over, what would be your favorite experience? What's your favorite set? What's your favorite build?
Okay, you guys want to hear that? I'll tell you a fucking story.
Yeah. let's hear
Yeah.
it.
So I'm working at Legacy Effects, and the guy next to me, his name's Vance, and he goes, "Hey man, I got a movie shooting down in Texas, and this guy's approached me, and they're finally getting all their ducats together." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. This is all gonna just be off the shelf purchases that I'm just gonna go down there and glue on this guy."
Yeah.
And I literally go down there, and the guy is hands off, and I'm just like, rad. I can do whatever I want to do. And he goes, yes, as long as it is this, this, and this, and like zombie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, let's do it, right? And so I'm a big fan of Rick Baker. And when one of the first things I ever saw was the making of Thriller, right?
Yeah.
Because on general on Music 101 or Video 101, which is a Richard Blade show that was here in Los Angeles, they would show videos, and then after the Thriller video, they would show the making of Thriller,
The process.
and that was the first time I
Yeah.
ever saw anybody doing application in a BTS before, like a behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the 80s and there wasn't internet.
Yeah.
So
There were no featurettes on
there was
DVDs.
zero, dude.
Yeah.
Zero. I mean, you literally had like Cinephax, Fangoria, and like Starlog. Those were like kind of your windows into this world of magazines,
Yeah.
right? And there was like the Corson's book over at the Amelia Earhart Library on like Laurel Canyon, but like other than that, it's just like you didn't really have much access to things. And so when I saw that, I just always fell in love when I was just like, you know what? I want to do these zombies like the Thriller zombies. So I want to do like these tribute zombies. And I remember and it's just one zombie. It was kind of like I Know What Your Boyfriend Did last summer, or no.
Know
Your
What You Did
boyfriend. No, Your Boyfriend's Back. That was the name of the movie. And when it's a movie about a high school, romance, and the guy dies and he comes back to life, and they through love, right? And so this movie was this vengeance tale of this guy dying. And I remember I'm like doing this makeup, and I love it. The guy's stone in the chair.
Yeah. You have full creative freedom.
Full creative freedom. The paint is great. The application was great. Everything was perfect. And then we're shooting in a graveyard in Texas. And they dig this big hole in a graveyard.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, rad. This guy's eating this body after he just had sex with his lover as a zombie. I'm like, this is going to be fucking amazing. And we fucking get in to this thing. And I am just over the moon. I'm just like, dude, this is going to be perfect. I'm like taking pictures. I'm like I'm like, fuck, rad. And then all of a sudden, Wolfgang, who's the DP, he starts shooting these jump takes. And I'm just like, whoa, what's going on? And he goes, I'm like, what scene are we on? And they were holding the same camera position for different scenes. And the continuity was different for each scene. And I was just like, dude, what's going on? I went over to the script supervisor. I'm like, what scene are we on? And she was like, I don't know.
That's a great script supervisor.
And I was just like, what do you mean you don't? She goes, they don't tell me what shot we're on.
How is that possible?
I'm like, listen. I'm like, are we on scene 45 or 48? And she was like, I think we're on both. And I'm like, one scene, he has blood all over his face because he just killed. He just ate the what the fuck is it called? The caretaker, right? The gravedigger.
Yeah.
And then the other scene, he doesn't. And I'm like, so what? Like, you guys realize that all of this stuff you're not going to be able to cut back to this because he's going to have blood on one scene and the blood on the other scene. And they were just like, oh shit, you're right. And I'm like, yeah. Why
was that her first scripty gig or
one of them? But I just thought it was funny that I went from like killing it to immediately just eating it. And I was like, how is this happening? Man, but this is the thing. I wouldn't change it for the world. I don't know what happened to that movie. I don't know if it ever came out, but I did what I went out there to do, and I had a good time doing it.
And you got some pictures of it, just in case it didn't come out.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, is he looked so amazing. Like, the lighting was beautiful. Like, it was in the right context. He's in a grave. He's a zombie. He's eating someone, and he's having sex. I'm just like, this is fucking shit.
He's just going through the gauntlet.
I mean, we're just hitting every 80s cliche
That's
you can
probably
possibly
why the
get.
movie didn't come out.
Right. I remember seeing like a cut of the movie, and I was like an assembly of a movie. And if you guys don't know what an assembly is like whenever you do a movie, there's an initial assembly of the movie, which is like
just
a page turn, a chronological scene to scene to scene, which can be hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a 90-page, you're generally doing like a minute a page, right? So it's a 90-minute movie, it's 90 pages. But a lot of things that you see in scripts are not linear like that. There's a lot of jumping around. And what ends up happening is that if you try to shoot a movie in chronological order, there's multiple variables that don't allow you to do that. Locations, availability.
Unless you have a shitload of money or your studio or your Spielberg.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you have to do it in pieces, right?
Yeah.
You're going to do this graveyard. Well, scene 25 and scene 48 all happen in this graveyard. Well, we only have this graveyard for one day. So we have to shoot both these scenes in one day. But in this scene, the top of his head's torn off at the back of the day. And at the top of the day, he's in full human makeup. And you're just like, all right, well, I need 4 hours to do this makeup. So what are you going to shoot for those 4 hours while he's in the chair?
Yeah.
Nothing.
You guys better get some fucking B-roll going.
Yeah.
But anyways,
some creepy gravestones.
That was a really cool experience because that guy just trusted me so much. And
it feels good.
Yeah. And
whenever you're just told, go out there and do what you do.
And there was another character that was in the movie, and I'll kind of wrap it up with this. There was another character in that movie that Doug Jones was supposed to play. And if you guys don't know who Doug Jones is, he was Abe Sapien. He was in the Shape of Water. He was the creature in the Shape of Water.
You've seen Doug Jones
in so much stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the
fish guy in Hellboy.
That's Abe Sapien.
Yeah, he's done a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Shape of Water, right?
He was in Pan's Labyrinth. He played the child eater in Pan's Labyrinth. He also played the Pan. Like he played like multiple roles. He's kind of like Guillermo's guy, right? But he's worked, and he's a great character actor. But just does
figure.
He's actually like very, very skinny.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we saw him in the airport that one time. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah,
He was
I
the
mean,
only
isn't he
person who had recognized
I'm like, dude,
Doug Jones.
it was like me, Mick Ignis, and Thomas, and we're looking over, and they're all of a sudden like Doug is walking by, and Mick is a character actor too, or a suit guy too.
Yeah.
And he's like,
our Doug.
he's railishly thin too. And he was just like, that's his idol. But it was kind of funny because there was all these casting things, and there was supposed to be this kind of like supernatural entity that kind of allows this zombie to rise from the grave after this incantation is done by his living wife.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're like, this guy's going to do it. This guy's going to do it. And we get this guy, and he comes in. He's not doing well, man. He's probably either untreated or still actively in some type of addiction or mental illness. And he's putting one on, and he's coming in super hot, and he's nodding off in the chair, and he's like asking like the fucking sheriff to get him fucking benzos and shit like that. I'm just like, oh man. And they know his days are numbered.
Yeah.
Right. And so he comes in, and they fire him, and I have to clean him up on set. And then he goes away, and I'm like, well, who's playing this character? He's like an integral part of the whole plot.
But you never see him, right?
He's always kind of obscured.
Yeah.
He's always this kind of like thing. And I always was like, I kind of want him to look like Uncle Creepy a little bit, from the old magazines. I kind of want him to look like this really tall, slender kind of guy who's balding, and he's just got long hair and a beard. And then he gets fired. And this guy comes in, and he was just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. And so I had to make all these concessions and ultimately put something on camera that I wasn't 100% fucking thrilled about. And what ended up happening is like, all of a sudden, the guy gets fired, and this linebacker he was like a auxiliary guy for the Dallas Cowboys shows up. And they're like, put the makeup on him. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you have a better chance putting that makeup on me.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I put it on this guy. He's like 6'8". He's like 280, 290, big guy, right? Super athletic. And he's not an actor. He's just a presence, right? And we do all this stuff. And we finally get back to LA, and a year and a half goes by. And I finally get a call, and he goes, hey man, I got Doug Tate. And I'm like, dude, did you fucking get Doug? And he goes, I got Doug Tate. Now, Doug Jones and Doug Tate are two different people.
Couple of Dougs, yeah.
Completely different guys. But Doug Tate is an amazing, he's most known for, like, he's the Sasquatch in the Jack Link's commercials. Yeah, but he's done, so I've done quite a few projects with him, and he's a fantastic actor, and he does a lot of character stuff, but he's also like a really solid actor. So those are the kind of things you kind of look for when you're doing makeups on someone that can sit there in the chair and then do like really great performances and let you do stuff to them, like fucking put contacts in them and like, teeth that, whatever. And he calls me and he goes, I'm like, dude, I got this thing. And he goes, I got Doug Tate. I'm like, dude, I have a couple pieces left over that are going to work for him. And I do this makeup, and I beg, borrow, and steal, and I get like this giant, he looked like this, like, he was like this zombie, but he had this big long beard and big long hair. And then I did all these like incantations on his forehead in tattoo transfers.
Okay.
And I was just like, that's it, dude. That's the character. He put his teeth in. We got some contact lenses. Christina Nelson came out and did the lenses for us, and they were beautiful. She's a lens tech here in Los Angeles who now started doing designer lenses, and she's just phenomenal. She did Joel's lenses for Bright.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And she's been on Hellboy, and she works with Joel Harlow all the time. She's a phenomenal presence also to have in the trailer. And we did this makeup. We created this character, and I was just like, dude, every single character on this movie that I did is exactly what I wanted to. It eventually, in the end, ended up being exactly what I wanted to do. And it looks fucking rad.
At that point, you're as much of part of the performance as the actor is.
Well, yeah,
because you're constructing it almost. You're constructing the character.
And it's that collaboration.
them,
It comes back to this, a team.
Yeah, it's that collaborative thing. And that's why when the personal thing that I was alluding to earlier, as far as like, when you're cold, you're hot, you're hot. And that whole thing, when you're miserable, I'm fucking miserable too. When you're lonely, guess what? I'm lonely too.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be here, guess what? Neither do I.
But when you're popping and when you happy and when you on a roll, motherfucker, you are too.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yo,
You gotta suffer to thrive.
Yeah.
Nice.
Kale, I gotta thank you.
Yeah,
I have to
dude,
thank you
thanks for having me on.
so much for dropping the wisdom bomb on us, man. Like, I feel like this is a great index for a lot of people.
The show's
looking to get
inaugural
this.
makeup artist.
Yeah, dude. Like, literally, we need to have you back on because I feel like I could do a whole nother hour and a half.
Yeah.
Easily. Like,
I'd love
you
to.
got open invitation whenever. I know you're a busy guy.
I didn't think I would be able to talk for this long, and
I know before the show you were like, "Are you sure we're gonna be able to talk this long?"
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
There's only like kind of one thing I would really love to kind of circle back and stick a pin in for the listeners. It's just like, if you're looking for fame and success as a makeup artist, there are places for you to do that. There are avenues for you to do that. And I encourage those as a nest of creativity and for you to generate revenue on that. But if your sole purpose is to work in the film industry and to work on film projects, then it is it's a job.
Yeah.
And you have to make sacrifices, and there's no shortcuts doing this.
You got to put
have
in
to
time.
pay dues, and you have to just. It's like it's almost like one of those things where it's just like who can eat the most shit right now, and that guy who can do the most or girl is gonna move on to the next project, and sometimes it's not easy, and sometimes it sucks, and sometimes it's tragically humbling, and it's saddening. But the amount of elation and like my cup gets full when I'm able to execute on a high level to the degree that I think something should look. It outweighs everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And so if that's my pay.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking for anything other than that, I'm in the wrong place.
The juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze.
Like, I'm not on camera. This is actually a rarity for me to come in and talk about what I do publicly. Like, my Instagram page is like my garden and my puppy. Like, it's Luna and her new like pink hoodie. Like, that's my thing. And a lot of people that I work with like to have a certain amount of anonymity. And if that's not what you're looking for, then I always say, like, there's other venues that who knows how untouched they are, right? You can go and you can make a living doing makeup online and doing tutorials. And a lot of people do it and they get big sponsorships and that's great. But I, in my experience to date, haven't seen someone that can do both. You either have to choose one or the other. It's like you either want to do this because this is something that you are passionate about and that you're willing to go to any length to get. Otherwise, you're doing it for the wrong reason and we'll smell you from a mile away. Yeah. And so that's my little 2 cents for someone that's listening. So if you want to come out and do this, it's a great job. You're going to have lots of fun doing it, but it's not for everybody.
Right.
There you go. Lessons from the GOAT. Ladies and gentlemen, Cale Thomas up in the building.
Thank you guys.
Yo, Cale, let the people know you got a website, you got social you want to plug, anything going on? What do you
No,
got?
dude, I'm just working right now. I'm working until April. I'm just gonna stay in LA. But if you want to follow me, it's my website is calethomasmakeup.com.
Yeah, we can see your work there.
And then my Instagram page is my name, Cale Thomas Makeup. It's super simple. I'm not that hard to get a hold of.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And if you want to hate.
Nah, fuck that.
Lots of hate. Send a lot of hate your way.
No
Right when we
hate.
leave.
We'll send our legions after him.
Cool.
All right, let's go around the circle real quick.
Oh, yeah. Always check out the Ding Dong Show Mondays at the Comedy Store at 10 o'clock and on YouTube. Also check out GT's Comedy Jam, doing 2 shows a month. Great shows. Comedians come out, laugh, and have a great time, man. Listen to the Modules perform. It's a great band we got going on out there. And always just check out everything we always do. You know, check out everything the Skitbags do. And I'm warm for the day.
All right.
I'm just happy.
You can follow me at TMcD on Instagram and just keep listening to the show.
Yeah, and go
That's all I ask.
subscribe. Watch us on our YouTube channel. It's Skitbags Radio on YouTube because we got more grand old things coming. We've been in the works. So go to the website for our other shows, skitbags.com. If you want to check out our friends, go to onit.com, promo code Skitbags, and also dipstickvapes.com, promo code Skitbags. So, yeah, that's it for us. Skitbags Radio.
We out.
We out! Woo!
Later.
Skitbags Radio.